Hey everybody, this is Dylan with D Squared Games. I was watching some YouTube videos on our board game feed this morning, and I saw the brothers Murph post a video about how they organize their shelves. And I was actually kind of thinking about doing that, doing a video similar to that recently, just to show you guys kind of what our shelves look like and what games we have, because we show you pictures on our Instagram and Facebook and stuff of what we're playing, but obviously we haven't taken a picture of every single game we own. So I wanted to show you guys that. And we actually have two different areas where we have games. We've got games on our main floor, just a few games sitting here on this shelf, and then we've got some more downstairs. So I'll have a two-part thing here. So in our main floor, this is our dining room actually. So we've got our dining room table right here. This shelf, I built this shelf back in like October. Dara and I built this shelf. The original purpose was to store our little winter Christmas village thing during the holiday times. But then obviously that went away. And so now we're using it for game storage. So the original reason that I started storing games up here was because we got our copy of Calico, and I hadn't made a space for it in our main game area downstairs yet. And I was like, oh, we have this shelf that's basically empty. Let's just put this on here. And then I was like, well, we might as well have some other games like it up here, some easy abstract games that maybe we can play while we are eating food, or maybe that if somebody comes over and hasn't played games with us before, these are quick little games that are just sitting right here and they don't need to go downstairs and see the massive games that are down there. So we've got Calico. We just got our Kickstarter copy of Cascadia. So that was obviously just going to go right next to Calico, since Flat Out Games is the publisher for both of those, and they're both kind of abstract-y tile laying games. Then we've got Azul Summer Pavilion. We used to have Azul, the base game Azul, but we got rid of that in favor of Summer Pavilion. Lanterns was one of the first games we ever got, back when we only had like 7 or 8 games. We love Lanterns. Reef, Topiary is a great tile laying game, Topiary, where you're looking at, you're placing meeples around a grid of tiles and looking at different bushes, and they have to be at certain heights and stuff like that. And then Suro, Tiny Towns, so that's kind of our area there. And now I have animals attacking each other. So this is our kind of abstract, light, family weight game section, and then the rest of our games are downstairs. So I'll show you guys those in a second. All right, so now we are in the main game area in our basement. So first thing, we've got Crokinole. We got that from the Mayday Kickstarter a few months ago, so that's just hanging on the wall. That's not obviously stored on the shelves. We turned our scythe boxes, old scythe boxes, into some art when we got our legendary box. So that's in a frame there. And then we've got some other frames over there that I'll show you in a second. So let's get started. So on the table, we've got Feast for Odin right now. So I'll show you where that normally goes on our table, but we set that up. So we're going to play that this evening. So our collection has gone through several iterations of organization over the years that we've been doing this. And you're going to get kind of a window into my brain. And I assume that's kind of what's happening with all these people showing off how they organize their collection. So when we got Above and Below for the very first time, this was our very first Red Raven game, very first Ryan Lockett game, I was like, oh, perfect. That's a game that starts with an A. Because the only other game that we had at the time that started with an A was Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, which we no longer even have. So that's why I was like, oh, perfect. I've got an A game. I can just throw that at the beginning. At the time, that was our only Red Raven game, and so it just went at the front. Over time, we got other Red Raven games. We've also owned Islebound in the past and then sold it. So now, all of our Red Raven games are next to each other at the beginning, because Above and Below happened to be at the beginning at one point. So those are all of Ryan Lockett's 3 Arzium games. Looking forward to Now or Never coming out soon. And of course, the gigantic Sleeping Gods. Then from there, I was like, well, we have this giant section of our collection dedicated to a single publisher. What's our other publisher that we have a bunch of games from? It was Stonemaier Games. So next we would have had all of our Stonemaier games, and then that kind of sparked off the rest of the collection. Now we have way too many Stonemaier games, and most of their boxes are bigger now and take up more space. So I have those in a different area. But the rest of this shelf is kind of the way it is because of that. So from then on, the way I usually organize our games is by the type of game it is. So deck building or cooperative game or worker placement, things like that. And then try to do alphabetically within that. But then I depart from that very quickly after a while because I just have a ton of games and we have to fit them all in here. So we've got Sleeping Gods, which is, kind of a sailing themed. You're moving your ship, the Manticore, through this mystical land. And so what comes next? Pirates. So we've got Forgotten Waters and our Kickstarter copy of Sea of Legends. Sea of Legends has kind of fallen under the radar a little bit. We kickstarted that and it just got here a few months ago. Super fun game with basically just 2 giant boxes of miniatures that are all pirates and just super cool. Runs with an app, so I know not everybody likes that. But so we've got our pirate games there. Then if we move down a little bit, we've got Windward, which is an Eldorado Games game, which is about sailing in clouds and using the clouds as your fuel, actually, to move around and hunting these cool flying whales and all kinds of stuff. And then, all right, now you're going to kind of see how my brain works. All right, so pirates, what do those things have in common? Water. All right, so now we've got Aquatica. What's Aquatica got in it? Cards. It's a card game. Okay. Mariposas. Why is it's next in alphabetical order because it's somewhat about cards with animals, kind of nature themed, which is kind of Aquatica, not really, but then the rest kind of makes sense. So Mariposas is an animal themed card game. Meadow is an animal themed card game. Parks is next, and that's a nature national parks animal themed card game. Oceans animal themed card game. Everdell animal themed card game. We have a trend here. Isle of Cats is an animal themed card and tile game. And then from there, we kind of just keep going with the card game themed. So Terraforming Mars and Ares Expedition are card games. We just got Rocketmen not too long ago, a few days ago. So that's a deck builder. So then the rest in this area are deck builders. So Clank in Space, Clank, Fort. We just got Imperium, both classics and legends, deck builder. Lost Ruins of Arnak, obviously big deck builder that came out this last year. And then from there, that's where I kind of started going by types of games. So now we've got cooperative games. So Seventh Continent, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Dead Men Tell No Tales is another one that kind of flies under the radar sometimes. It's a pandemic style pirate themed game. So that one's super fun. Has an expansion that we haven't gotten yet. Let me move out of the way of the chairs here. Our game table is right in front of all of our shelves. So now we've got Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, Matt Leacock, pandemic style games. We don't have our copy of Pandemic anymore because we played so much Pandemic Legacy that we got kind of worn out by the theme. So we've kept some of the other Pandemic style games that have a different theme. Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle Earth, one of our highest played games, about 40 plays of that. We still need to play the most recent digital campaign before we get the new big Spreading War box expansion. So that looks like it should be a lot of fun. Take a sip of my coffee. Actually, speaking of coffee, we just got our coffees, from Many Worlds Tavern, trying out their this particular coffee is their Homely Home coffee. I tried the Dragon's Nest coffee yesterday. That was great. This is awesome. Very, very good coffee for a company that I had never heard of until about 2 weeks ago. So Very, very good. Check it out. All right, so continuing on with the cooperative, we have a lot of cooperative games. So then this year's Kennerspiel winner, Paleo, is down here. Then, of course, we've got Robinson Crusoe. We had First Martians, and we actually liked it more than most people did, but it was kind of rough. So we sold off First Martians, kept Robinson Crusoe. Spirit Island, Stuffed Fables. We've played Jerry Hawthorne's other adventure book games. We've played Aftermath, we've played Comanauts and Stuffed Fables. We haven't gotten around to getting Mice and Mystics yet, but Stuffed Fables was our favorite and the one that we would want to probably play with kids if we ever have kids. So that's why we kept Stuffed Fables. Another one that's kind of not gotten a ton of attention is the Stygian Society. It's a Kevin Wilson game. He's designed a ton of cooperative games, and it's super awesome. It's got this really cool tower that you drop cubes in, and when the cubes come out, that determines how much damage you can do and how much damage the enemies do to you. It's really cool. Check it out if you haven't had a chance to. Subterra was a Kickstarter we did a while back. One of my greatest memories in gaming was when we traveled to St. Louis a few years ago and got to play games with Jamie Stegmeyer of Stonemeyer Games, and we played Subterra with him, and we won, and it was just awesome. It was a great game. Then next we've got Time Stories. That's these two little boxes right here. We had all of the original cycle of Time Stories modules and sold those off to a friend of ours because we had played through all of them. So hopefully he's been playing through those. So we have the experience box, which is how you can kind of connect your story through the new Time Stories games. And then we've got A Midsummer Night's Dream there. We haven't played that one yet. We played the Hadal Project about 6 months ago and made it through that, and then we have that one and we haven't played that yet. Another new addition to our shelves are the Chronicles of Crime games. We haven't played much of that yet. We played the intro tutorial for the Chronicles of Crime base box, but we haven't played anything else yet, and we just got 1,400 at the same time because they were on sale. Probably the game that's worth the most money in our collection, which is kind of odd, is Battlestar Galactica, because we have the base game and 2 of the 3 expansions in there. We haven't played it in years, but we always hope to every time we get a chance. And so this is where our cooperative kind of bleeds into a new kind of game on our shelf. So we've got cooperative, and then we've got one versus many. So Battlestar Galactica can be one versus many. It can be fully cooperative sometimes, depending on player count. And then Betrayal, obviously, is one versus many. We also had the original Betrayal along with the expansion, but we sold that off, and we just play our copy of Legacy now with the haunts that are in there. Then, let's see, Thornwatch is another one versus many game. That was a Kickstarter. That was one of our very first Kickstarters that we did. And so that one is super cool. It's based on a comic series, online comic series by Penny Arcade, and it's really, really good. So that one's super fun. And then now that we're out of the kind of cooperative games, I went into the fully competitive stuff. So what is competitive? What's the first type of competitive game I could have had? I just went alphabetically. First competitive type of game I could think of in our collection was area control games. So that's where I came up with Terra Mystica, Clans of Caledonia, which are essentially the same game. The designer of Clans of Caledonia admitted that there was a lot of ties to Terra Mystica, which there are. Very different games, though, in the same vein. So Terra Mystica, Clans of Caledonia, and then continuing up with the area control theme, we've got Dominant Species Marine, which we had the original Dominant Species, and then we bought this and decided we liked it better, and so we are keeping Dominant Species Marine. This is Cerebria by Mind Clash Games. One gripe that I will talk about, publishers, if you're watching this, when you put the name of your game on the side of the box, make it big. Not like this, or like this, or like this. Make it big so I can actually see what game it is. And in this case, actually put the name on the side. Because Cerebria, if you don't know, has the name there, but I can't put it in the shelf like this. Anyway, obviously not a real problem. First world problems, right? Just put the name of the game on the side. Just saying. All right. So that's Cerebria. Super awesome game about controlling emotions inside of a brain. Really, really cool. Inish, this is the version that has kind of the shiny lettering on it. There's nothing special about the actual components on the inside of the game, but it's got the cool box. Kami-sama is one that, if you followed our top 100 of games of all time this last winter, is in my personal top 10 games of all time. We love that game at 2 players. There's an automated third player at 2 players that makes the game just perfect. If it was 2-player normal, it would be too mean, and at higher player counts, at 4, it is too long and also just really cutthroat. I haven't played it at 3 yet, but we've played probably 20 times at 2. So it's fantastic at 2. There's not very many area control games where it's just perfect at 2-player, because there's always a little bit of cutthroat meaniness. But that one is just great with how the automated player just always knows what you want and takes it away from you. Photosynthesis. We actually had a copy of Photosynthesis, and then Dara's sister and her husband visited Germany and bought us a copy of Photosynthesis which is the German copy, and so we have a German copy of Photosynthesis. The game is completely language independent, so it didn't matter. But yeah, it's kind of cool to have Photosynthesis in German, which is pretty fun. We've got Rise of Tribes, another Kickstarter game. We've got the expansion in there as well. We've only played with the expansion once. We need to play again. Rise of Tribes has this fantastic dice mechanism where every turn you take 2 dice and roll them, and then you push them into actions that also have dice sitting on them, and then the symbols that are left on those dice tell you the power of that action. It's a really cool mechanism. I haven't seen it in any other games, and I really like it. Got a copy of Risk. Neither of us really like Risk all that much compared to all of our other games. I really just have this copy because it's the one that I had growing up. And so, yeah, Risk. We've got Root. We've got both expansions for Root, and we kickstarted the most recent one. Small World, have a few expansions for that. That one we have mostly for nostalgic reasons. It's okay. We don't play it very much, but yeah. Stonebound Saga is a new one that we just got. I thought about kickstarting it a few years ago, but never got around to it, and just traded for it. Traded our copy of Castle Panic for Stonebound. We played it once last week, and we're excited to play that again. And then that takes us out of the area control combat-y type games. And then our biggest section of games, our most common type of games that we have in our collection, are worker placement games. So we're going to go on to those. So first one alphabetically is Agra, which has a beautiful side of its box. It looks like a book. And then Architects of the West Kingdom. And then Paladins of the West Kingdom and Viscounts of the West Kingdom aren't what I would call necessarily worker placement games. Viscounts is definitely a deck builder, and Paladins is kind of worker placement, but you're placing workers on your own personal board. So it's more action selection than worker placement. But I have to have those 3 games together because it just looks so nice. So that's Architects, Paladins, and Viscounts. So those are the West Kingdom games and Agra. And then we move into the big heart of our collection over here with our giant Anachrony big box up here from Mind Clash. And then keeping that theme, we've got our Tricarian big box here, and then some more worker placements. So, Uwe Rosenberg, we've got Agricola with all of the expansion decks and Farmers of the Moor. Hallertau, big new game from him from this last year. Very, very good. We need to play it again. We've only played it twice, I think. Fantastic game. Aura et Labora, we've only played this one twice, I think, as well. This is one of his older games, and we found a used copy about a year ago, and we really like that. Feast for Odin would normally be right here, but as I said before, that's over on the table. Then Viking-themed worker placement, Feast for Odin. Then we come to Champions of Midgard. Valhalla is not a worker placement game. It is actually a card and dice game, but it's Viking themed, so I just kept it next to the other two Viking themed games, so you can see how the shelf is kind of organized. So I try to do worker placement games. I try to do things in alphabetical order: Agricola, Hallertau, Aura et Labora, but technically Feast for Odin should be right here, but it's gigantic, and I wanted it next to the other Viking themed games, so that's why it comes down here. So you can kind of see, hopefully, where my thought process is. So then Champions of Midgard is a C, so if we skip Valhalla and go to D, then we've got Dinosaur Island. So Dinosaur Island, Gugong, Kingsburg, Lords of Waterdeep. Netatonka is a fantastic game, worker placement game, where your workers are actually linked together by these links on the board, and so you have to strategically place your workers in such a way that they're linked together by those links, and then you get little bonuses from doing that. And the theme is really awesome too. It's about native tribes in, I believe, in the Himalayas, if I'm remembering correctly. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong and they know about Netatonka, but it's a very, very good game. Rajas of the Ganges, fantastic worker placement game with dice as resources rather than as your workers. Really awesome tile-laying part of that game as well. And then, of course, the very first worker placement game I ever played, Stone Age, followed subsequently after by Lords of Waterdeep. Stone Age is very, very special for me. We do not have a copy of the expansion, and so it's still weird for me to play just with the base game, even though we've played our copy of just the base game several times, because growing up back in high school, when I was introduced to the game, the person that had it already had the expansion, and we always played with that. So it's always still weird playing without that, but we'll get it someday. All right, so now S. So now we're on to the T game section. So Board and Dice has the T games from them, and we've got all of them. So we've got Twantansuyu by Dave Turchi, we've got Teotihuacan, and all of the expansions. Tekkenu, we've got Trismegistus, and then Zulkin is not by Board and Dice, but it's by the same designer as Trismegistus, Tekkenu, Teotihuacan, and so that is in that T game section. So we then go out of the worker placement games, kind of, and we have our train games. We've got 18 Chesapeake and our 2 copies of Brass, Birmingham, and Lancashire. Okay. Why are those there? Because they're small and they fit. That's really it. And then from there, I went with kind of a theme thing. So Brass is kind of an industrial era train game, and so then I wanted to have Barrage next to it, because that's about creating dams in the industrial era. But if I wanted Barrage there, I also kind of wanted to have the worker placement game by the same designers next to it, so there's Alma Mater. And then continuing on with the theme of industrial era type themes, so there's Pipeline. And then industrial era type themes lead to climate change, unfortunately. So try to fix that with Vita Lacerda's CO2. So trying to solve climate change, have some more sustainable and eco-friendly energy production. But just like all of Vital Lacerda's games, the realism is in there as well. So creating the energy is just as harmful to the environment sometimes, even when it's more sustainable. But now we have to leave our theme again, though, because we've got so many Vital Lacerda games that I want them all next to each other. So we've got CO2, and then the rest are just in alphabetical order. So Gallerus, Lisboa, On Mars, and Vinhos. All right, so what's next? Sagrada probably should be upstairs with those games that I showed you before, with those kind of abstract, easier family weight games. I'm not really sure why I haven't moved it up there yet, but at the moment it's next to Vinhos because Vinhos and some of other Vital Lacerda's games are set in Portugal, and Sagrada's in that area of the world, kind of. Then next we kind of start a weird part of our shelf, admittedly, that I kind of just threw together because I couldn't think of any other way to do it. So Vinhos and Sagrada I put next to each other because they have similar places in the world that they're themed based on. So then the rest of this shelf is kind of historically or geographically themed games, and then games that fit in with those. So the next one I put in was Blackout Hong Kong. That's obviously themed in Hong Kong. So but then from there, I put all of our Alexander Pfister games next to it. So we've got Isle of Skye, Maracaibo, and then if you look closely, I've got Oh My Goods sitting up here and Tibor the Builder sitting up here. Those are both Alexander Pfister card games. Then continuing with our way of having to kind of weave in and out of our organization scheme, I've got all of our Alexander Pfister games, and then Cooper Island, because Cooper Island is themed based on sailing around an island and doing kind of Euro-y stuff like that, which is also Maracaibo. So putting those two together kind of made sense. And then now I've got Cooper Island. I need to continue on with the seas. So now I've got Carcassonne. So I recently just got the Carcassonne the City wood box from way back when that they made a long time ago. I found a copy of it. And so that has our copy of the base game and all of the expansions for the base game, as well as a full copy of Carcassonne the City in it. Carcassonne the City is actually super fun. It's got these little towers and walls that you build around the outside of the city. Super cool. Then Catan, of course. We don't play Catan very much because we're primarily two-player only gaming. And we don't often play with 3 players. But yeah, so that's Catan. And then moving over, we've got Carpe Diem, so Stefan Feld. And then we kind of lose our geographically themed section here a little bit with Bonfire, but that's also by Stefan Feld, so wanted them to be together. And then Forum Trajanum, Stefan Feld. Same thing again, we're losing our geographically themed again with Black Angel, but Black Angel is a dice drafting game, and so is Grand Austria Hotel. And I had Grand Austria Hotel next. And so I wanted to have Black Angel over here because it's got a similar type of game. Grand Austria Hotel is designed by the same group of people that Lorenzo Il Magnifico is designed by, and both of them are designed by the people that designed Alma Mater and Barrage. So why don't I have them over there? Because Pipeline made more sense thematically. You're starting to understand why my brain is weird. So Grand Austria Hotel, Lorenzo. La Granja is another dice drafting, card playing game. So that's why that's there. It also made sense in alphabetical order. Then Elysium, card game based on Greek mythology. Glenmore, based on Scotland. Heaven and Ale is fantastic. If you haven't played Heaven and Ale, you need to play it. And then Renature is only over here because it's similar to Heaven and Ale in that it has one of the designers being the same, and it's a tile laying game. Renature is domino tiles, but that's why it's over here. Also, I had a space over here. Inuit is a fantastic card drafting game about Inuits, about the native people that have that name, and so it's fantastic. If you haven't tried it yet, it's got really great art. I'll pull out the box here actually. The art in this game is just amazing. The card art is even better. Continuing with the geographic themes, Istanbul. Island of El Dorado is obviously not a real geographical theme, but it's got really realistic geographical concepts and art and stuff in it, because the art in Island of El Dorado is actually real art from like the New York Metropolitan Museum, so that's really cool. Lions of Lydia, we've only played that one once so far, but it's really good. It's got this really cool theme of being about when coinage was invented, which is what the Lions of Lydia are. They're these coins. And the game kind of has a really cool arc where before the Lions of Lydia become really important, the game kind of builds up slowly, and then once the lions come in and you can use them as a wild resource, the game just skyrockets and ends, and it's really, really cool. We got Merv, Merchants of the Silk Road. Minerva is a really cool tile-laying game. My City, obviously not a real geographical theme, but fit over here. Nations, great civilization building card game. Praga, Vladimir Suchy. We haven't played any of his other games, but this one is really, really good. I'm glad this was our first one. It's fantastic. The board is a little bit crazy busy, kind of hard to keep track of where everything is, but once you've got it down, it's really, really good. All right, continuing with the geographic theme, we got Tang Garden, and then Taverns obviously isn't a real geographic theme, but just kind of keeping with the alphabet. So Taverns of Tiefenthal. We had Quacks, but personally I just didn't like it. I don't know why, it just didn't sit well with me. I always liked Taverns better, so we kept that, sold Quacks. Ticket to Ride Europe, and then we leave the geographical theme stuff and go into the fantasy themed games. So we've got Sentry Golem, Call to Adventure, Dice Forge, Dice Throne. We've actually got all of Dice Throne. The other characters are just behind there because it takes up less space. In the Hall of the Mountain King, Kingdom Builder, Mage Knight. Monarch is a game that everyone needs to buy. If you don't have it, go get it. It's a really awesome card drafting game and tableau building game where you get really cool combos, and its theme is fantastic. You are playing as sisters who are trying to be the best princess to take over the throne because the queen has recently passed away, and it's just really great. The youngest sister gets to go first, and so it's one of Dara's favorite games, but I always get to go first because I'm younger than her, and it's just great. Anyway, so that's Monarch. Continuing with the fantasy themed games, we've got Role Player, Runebound, Sanctum, Vindication, and then we leave that and go to some roll and writes. So we've got Cartographers, Welcome to, and On Tour. These games are all next to each other simply because they have a similar box size. So King Domino and Radiant. Radiant was a really under the radar Kickstarter that we backed about 4 years ago. It is a trick taking game that has a big board that you're battling over, and that's where winning the tricks wins you the areas on the board. It's kind of like Pinochle a little bit, but you're playing for control over a board. We've got our copy of Villagers here. The only reason this is here is because it's just a weird box, and so I just kind of stick it wherever it goes. There's kind of some empty space above these games here, so that's why Villagers is there. And then this starts our 2-player only section, which is actually a decent sized section because we primarily play at 2 players. So this is Seven Wonders Duel. Masters of Orion Conquest is kind of a game I just got because it was on sale. It was like $5 one day. It's not the best, but it's okay if you want to do a quick 2-player only deck builder. It's decent. I am a huge baseball nerd, so I've got both Baseball Highlights 2045 and Bottom of the Ninth, and I've got everything for Bottom of the Ninth. We've got the giant box with all of the expansions in it. I love that game. I play it primarily solo, but we get it out every once in a while. Keyforge, we've got one box that's got all of our decks in it, and the other box that's got all the tokens in it. We're not like super into Keyforge. We're not like constantly buying decks to try to find the new ones. We basically just play it as if it were a board game, and just play it every once in a while. I think we've got maybe 8 decks, maybe 10 decks at most. Basically, just whichever two come with the starter box when each set comes out, plus a couple others. So that's Keyforge. Stellar is a really awesome card game, 2-player card game where you are looking at making observations of space objects in the night sky and then writing them down in your observation notebook. And the telescope and the notebook are two different areas where you have to put cards. It's a super cool game. We need to play it more than we do. We've got Targi, which is a great 2-player only worker placement game where you place workers around a grid and then you get whatever is in the middle of the grid where your workers intersect. But placing a worker blocks your opponent from placing opposite of you. It's super cool. Targi is a really, really awesome game. TAC. We are huge fantasy nerds, and we both love the Kingkiller Chronicle. And so we obviously had to get a copy of TAC. So a couple years ago for Christmas, we got a copy of TAC. And I actually have a handmade copy that I made with a 3D printer in my classroom and made a box for it with the laser engraver in my classroom. And that actually is permanently in my classroom for students to play and for me to play with other people. So that's TAC. Then Watergate, fantastic card game, tug of war game between Nixon and the press trying to uncover the Watergate scandal. Star Wars Rebellion. This is both Star Wars Rebellion and the expansion in one box. I got this primarily because the person I play games with most other than Dara is my friend Todd, and he's a huge Star Wars fan, and also this is one of the highest rated games of all time, and I wanted to try it. And so it was on sale one time, and I snapped it up, and we've played it a few times, and it's awesome. I actually spray painted the minis, one of the few sets of minis in our collection that have actually got some paint on them, because it was easy to do because I didn't have to actually sit there and paint them. I just spray painted them all. So all the Rebellion minis are one color, and all the Empire minis are a different color. And so it kind of pops on the table because the minis are different colors and things like that. But anyway, so that's Star Wars Rebellion. And those are all of our 2-player only games. The rest of the games are kind of just a mishmash of stuff. This is just one cooperative party game. Lost Expedition is a cooperative game. It's just over here because it makes more sense, because over on the cooperative section of the shelf over there is just going to take up more room than it's worth. Then we've got The Grizzled, another cooperative card game, Hanabi, The Mind, all cooperative card games. This game right here, you can't tell what it is from the side of the box, is Illimat. This is a Kickstarter a few years ago by Together Studios, and they worked with the Decemberists, the band, to make this box and make this game. It's a really, really cool card game with like a standard deck of cards. But if you play with 4 players, it adds a 5th suit instead of just 4. And the card play is really cool. You can combine cards and pull them off the board with cards in your hand and cool stuff like that. Tiny Epic Quest. We had Tiny Epic Quest and Zombies. A friend of ours has Zombies, and we didn't like it as much, so we got rid of it. We still have Quest. We don't play it as much as we used to, but we have that. Trash Pandas is a super cool push your luck game. We just got it for like $8 at Walmart one day, and I had heard some other people talking about it, and so I got it, and it's actually really fun. Push your luck dice and card game, and then the ultimate push your luck dice game, Zombie Dice. These are some, we didn't play test this. We played this in college a lot as a party game with our friends, and so we got our own copies. We don't play it very much anymore, but we've got it. Age of Civilization, Age of Galaxy. These are actually the prototype copies of those that we were sent by Ice Makes prior to each of those Kickstarters. So that's those. Board game tables. The people that made our tables, they also made On Tour. You can see board game tables. They made these 3 kind of filler type games. They kickstarted those last year, and they're actually super fun. We've only played each one once right when we got them, but we need to get them back. They're super cool. These are just some more card games. Phase 10, Gloom, 5 Crowns, and that's it for that. And then down here I've got our copy of Merchant's Cove and the Innkeeper expansion, which we just got. I just haven't found a spot for this in the collection yet, but I will soon. And then the rest is just kind of spillover stuff. So City of Kings, big cooperative game, super puzzly game, just kind of sits here because it's gigantic. Dragonfire is our second highest played game of all time, third highest because of Wingspan now. Cooperative dungeon crawl card game, really great. Aeon's End, this is all of Aeon's End. Is stored in 2 boxes, so the Legacy box and the Outcast box. The Legacy box is all of the hero cards, Outcast is all the villains and villain cards. Yeah, it took about 6 hours to sleeve all that when I got around to sleeving it. Marvel Champions, I've got all of our cards that aren't in decks in this box here, the Galaxy's Most Wanted box, and then I have the rest of the game, including the villains, in this giant wine box that I actually laser engraved all the hero symbols on a few months ago, and there's pictures of that on our Instagram. And then down here on the bottom, because it's super heavy, is Gloomhaven with Jaws of the Lion sitting on top of it there. And last but certainly not least is our Stonemaier game section. So originally I had Scythe, Wingspan, and Tapestry over here just because they all needed to kind of lay on their sides or took up a lot of space. So the legendary box for Scythe needed to be on its side instead of vertical because it was just so much stuff. Tapestry, I have a 3D printed insert in there for it and it just worked better flat, but I made it work now vertical. Wingspan, I have all of the expansions obviously, and so there's that. But I decided I just wanted them all together because half of them were all together over on the shelf over there, and then the other ones were over here, and it was just, I just wanted them all together. So the only Stonemaier game we do not have is Between Two Cities. We had it, and then we got Between Two Castles, and we just liked it better. So we no longer have Between Two Cities, but we've got everything else. We've done 2 multiplayer Charterstone campaigns. I've done 1 solo, Euphoria Pendulum. We just got the Broken Token Organizer for the legendary box for Scythe, so that's super cool. We just got metal coins for Viticulture finally, and I 3D printed an insert for it. Viticulture is my second favorite game of all time, only because of this guy right here. If you don't know, I studied birds in college. I am a trained ornithologist and ecologist, and Wingspan, the day I saw it, I knew that it was going to be the game that I would love forever, and it is. And if you look back here is all the rest of the Wingspan stuff, including our handmade dice tower that I made with laser engraver in my classroom, and both the European and Oceania expansions. And one thing that I like to brag about with the European expansion is that right there. I was very lucky enough to get to playtest the solo mode for the European expansion, and so forever my name will be on a Stonemaier game, and obviously you can tell that we like them a lot, so that means a lot to me. So even when the giant Wingspan box comes, you can bet I will not be getting rid of that purple box right there. So that is all of our collection minus 1 game, which is Coffee Roaster, which is a solo only game that is in the office next to my computer desk. And yeah, so that's all of our collection. You can kind of see how I organized it, kind of what my thought process was. It's a lot. The only other things that I have are some games over here. This is our for sale shelf. These are other people's games. We've got Hate up here. That's a friend of ours games. He just leaves it here so we can play it every once in a while. Clank Legacy, Pandemic Legacy, we're both done with both of those. They just kind of hang out up here because we don't have anywhere else to put them. And then if you care about spoilers, don't pause the video now, don't watch the rest. Thank you for watching. If you did, this is way too long of a video for you to have watched the whole thing, so thank you for doing that. If you don't want to see spoilers for Pandemic Legacy Season 1 and 2, click away from the video. But if you have already played through those or you don't care about spoilers, we have both of our Season 1 and 2 maps, along with a bunch of characters and cards and stuff framed on our wall here. So you can see that. And we've finished Season 0. I'm not sure if I'm going to frame it. This wall, it wouldn't really work on this wall because we'd have to like put it down here or rearrange these a little bit. But yeah, that's Season 1 and Season 2 of Pandemic Legacy. So yeah, that's our game shelves. Thanks to the Brothers Murph for bringing this up. I've been meaning to do this for a while and I just have never gotten around to it. So yeah, let me know how you organize your games and show off your collections too. All right, thanks guys.